Yep. So I think we should start it. Um, so for the Kubeless community con today, this week we in the team keep working on the decoupling trigger, and we have some more update. I already shared on the Kubeless Slack channel. So for today, I'd like to have a quick demo on the last date update of the Kafka trigger we're working on. So as you might know that maybe I give a brief description for Samir Sayan. So we have the function deployed separately, and we have the trigger deployed separately, and we have the mapping. And let's say the trigger, the Kafka trigger, will listening for the message on the specific topic in Kafka, and then forward it to the function. So we working mainly on the trigger brand, trigger with the S. And we're going to submit a pull request to master brand in the next few days when we feel it's in a good shape and it's well tested. Right now we keep changing the brand and keep testing it, updated, testing it again. So it's we very welcome you guys try it and let us know for any issue you might have. So for the demo today, I'm going to share my screen. Hold on for a second. Same screen. Say entire screen. Okay, did you see it? So let me know if you see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so the purpose of the demo, I'm going to share with you the current support for multiple topic mapping to multiple functions. So in the demo, I'm going to deploy two functions, function 1 and function 2 with the Python runtime. And we have two topic, Kafka, F3 and F4, that's the name. And then I'm going to map it, and I send message to the Kafka S3, hello from S3 and hello from F4. And the expect result is when I check the log of the function 1 and function 2, I expect to receive both messages. So now at the CLI, I have no function. Then, and I have the Kafka trigger controller deployed separately, and the Kubeless controller manager running here. So I'm going to deploy the function 1. I have some script here, but let me just copy and paste. So the function 1 with the trigger topic F3 runtime, the Python, and I'm going to create it. And you might be aware of the Kafka trigger controller here will give you some data. So I'm going to create a consumer. So when you run Kubeless function deploy and you specify the trigger topic, so it's going to deploy function and it's going to create the Kafka trigger CRD, and then you will see the Kafka trigger here, and the controller end up with create a consumer. So for the second function, the function 2 listening on the same topic. So you will see it's going to create another consumer. So at this point, you will have multiple functions listening to the single topic. And I'm going to create another trigger mapping function 1 to topic S4, and the trigger mapping function 2 to topic F4. We can't do it right now in the CLI because you have the function 1 and function 2 already deployed. But in the next couple of days, we're going to support Kubeless trigger create, and then you will have the CLI. But now I just going to create via the YAML file here. So you will see the topic at 4 and the function 1. Create K1. Then you see the log here is going to create another consumer for topic at 4 and function 1. And I have the same with K2 with function 2 and topic at 4. And it create K2. Then you have the next one is the consumer for topic at 4 and function 2. So everything is good. Now I'm going to submit some message. So let's say I'm using the Kubeless topic command, public at the topic S3, and data here, hello from S3, and you will see in the log, it's going to send the hello from S3 to function 1 and to function 2. I will check the log later, but in the log of the controller, you will see something here. And I'm going to submit hello from S4 to topic S4. And you will see the same thing here. Hello from S4 and to function 1 and function 2. So now to prove that it worked properly, I'm going to check the function log. So let's say I'm get log of the function 1. And you will see here several. So if the very dummy function is going to print out the message it received. So it received hello from at3 and it received hello from at4 in the function 1. And now check the log of the function 2. It had the same hello from at3 and hello from at4. So let's say it's going to work quite well. Both messages going through two topic and going through both function. And that is for the demo. Any questions so far? So I have to say that we need some more improvement, like it's very good in the creation, but for the function delete, we expect that it's going to delete the Kafka trigger as well, but right now it doesn't do it. That's one improvement. I think we figure out some more. I'm not really remember, but today Murali and I kill a lot of issue, a lot of bug, and I hope that the demo is good for you guys. That is a little bit proof of concept, and we keep updating the trigger brand. And if you can try it out and let us know about the issue, and it's good for us, good for the project. You want to update something so far from your side, Murali?
Yeah, maybe you just want to show up the label selector part just to show how the
right. I think I can do it as well with the screen share because I already have it running. Yeah, exactly. So I forgot to mention that we do the mapping via label selector. So let's say Kafka trigger. You will see here, for example, the K1. I will show you the K1, and we add in this. We have some finalizer. I will mention it later, or I will let Murali describe it. But focus on the spec here. We add the function selector and mass label with the function label. So the function name and created by Kubeless. They have done the same thing with other trigger. So for what function have the same label, and then the trigger will expect to send a message to. I think you should update the finalizer, Murali.
Yeah. Right. So basically the idea is to express the intent in more declarative way. Here, like you see, the creation of function itself is independent. It has its own life cycle. You can create, delete independently from the creating the trigger. The only way you connect both of them is through label selector. So like Juna showed, it just maps to the some of the mechanisms that Kubernetes already provides, like service to endpoints, and some other resources are mapped like that. So the one downside of this approach is you could delete a function when it is still associated with a trigger. So we basically has no way other than to use what API machinery provides. So we have initializers and finalizers. It's a way in which you could tell Kubernetes API server to delete an object, but it does a soft delete. And you could have a controller's mark a string in the object saying that this is I need to get a chance to clean up before you actually hard delete the object. So we have 4 controllers: function, Kafka, cron job, HTTP trigger. Uh, depending on whether required or not, each of them will mark. For example, if I create a Kafka trigger which uses a function, it's going to add a self as a finalizer to both the objects. So when we user deletes uh, the function object or the trigger object, the controller get a chance to process it. In this case, disassociate a function, which means stop listening to a topic and sending to a function, and then it will update the object so that API server eventually deletes the object. So it's a standard way. That's what we are using to gracefully clean up the resources. It so far it worked well. For Kafka, in fact, it works pretty well because they are very decoupled. You don't do an explicit association, but whereas in case of cron job and HTTP, it doesn't make sense to have a label selector. It's pretty much like one-to-one. Like you don't need to have a cron job for multiple functions. So there is an explicit reference to a function object. So it's a little bit tricky. So right now, for example, cron job trigger does add a finalizer to function object. So if user goes and deletes a function object, it still retains. But in terms of UX, how that has to be presented, it's not still very clear. Maybe you need to add an initializer, or I don't know. But at this point, yeah, the cleanup is performed, but the object still remain. We'll try to figure out what is the best UX in terms of cron job and HTTP triggers. Probably this problem will arise for in future for other triggers as well, where there's a one-to-one association. But maybe an initializer should basically you reject when you do a kubectl delete function, that should be rejected, saying that it cannot be deleted because it is still associated with that. That's the desired UX. Right now, you cannot achieve it without using initializer or some other means. That part is still little bit not vetted out. So, but I'm working on it.
Yep. So, yeah, do you have any comment or question so far?
Well, I don't see this as a big issue. This that if you delete a function, that this is not deleted. I mean, the trigger can also trigger multiple functions depending on the selector. When would you know if the trigger needs to be deleted?
Can you come again in class? I didn't get the question.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, the issue you described was that if you delete a function that is triggered by some trigger, and
Right.
the trigger still exists, So I mean, for HTTP and the cron job, I understand that this might be a bit awkward, but for Kafka, where you can have multiple functions triggered,
Right.
I mean, if you delete a deployment and there's still a service, that doesn't really matter.
Right. So for Kafka, it actually works quite well. It's more declarative and it's very decoupled function. It's only gets little bit ugly in Kafka, cron
Okay.
job and HTTP because it's one-to-one mapping and you are trying to delete a function which is still referenced by there is explicit reference to it from the other API object. So we could do initializer. I mean, the request can be denied saying that it's just matter of UX. You can still not let the object go away. So
Okay.
that's one way, but ideally it's better the user gets instant feedback. He tries to delete a function and immediately gets a response saying that you cannot delete the function because it's still in use. Something of that sort.
Yeah, I mean, depends. Maybe it could also be just a warning. I mean, at least in the case of Kafka.
Yeah, Kafka case, like I said, it's they're independent. You can delete a function, but the trigger trigger can continue to exist. And at the later point, you deploy a new function with matching labels. It just seamlessly fits into the subscription, topic subscription.
And for RabbitMQ, I could imagine that we would need something that the trigger controller might need to know when a function is deleted, because it would, the way I imagine or envision it is that the trigger controller would create a queue per function that is linked to that trigger. So of course, if the function then would be deleted, the queue would also need to be deleted again or somehow handled.
Right. So we actually we do have same problem with Kafka as well. So the Kafka controller primarily listens to the Kafka trigger objects, but also listens to the function objects, and it do get a chance to clean up the resources. It has to clean up. I mean, it's basically the same pattern. I looked up the kube control manager, and I could only find a PVC controller which has similar like PVC climbs and PV. It is the same finalizer, and the controller itself acts on two objects. So it's a standard mechanism I just picked up from one of the controller managers. So pretty much the skeleton of the logic is picked up from one of the kube control manager.
Yeah, it sounds good. So the whole demo, I mean, I really like the way this is evolving.
Yeah, we still have some issues, but we are planning to. We fixed a lot of integration tests, and we are hoping to raise a pull request by tomorrow or early next week.
Sorry, Amir. So I think moving next a bit. I looked at the pull request page and see one pull request from broadcast. He's not here. Sayang. I didn't check it, but
yes, I checked that pull request. It's about having the auxiliary image that we use in order to copy files from the config map or from the init container to the runtime container, moving that image to the config map, to the the Kubeless config map, and he did that in the lang runtime package. That is the one that manages the different languages, which works, but it's going to conflict with your work in the split of the triggers controllers, because is kind of tricky the way is used right now because of the cron jobs and the cron jobs that doesn't actually needs language interpretation are now using this package, and it's not very straightforward the way it is right now. So I sent that comment, but I didn't. I mean, he didn't reply back so far. So I don't know if he's continue working on that or.
So this sign here, I think he will. Right now he's on vacation, so I'm
Okay.
sure he's gonna get back and get back to you.
Okay, that's fine. Cool, thank you.
Yep, thank you. I think that is for this week. If you guys have any other idea to discuss, so far, otherwise, okay. I think it's enough. Bye bye, you guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.